comes from Deuteronomy chapter 34. Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho, and the Lord showed him the whole land, Gilead as far as Dan, all Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah, as far as the western sea, the Negeb and the plain, that is the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, as far as Zoar. The Lord said to him, "This is the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not cross over there." Then Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, at the Lord's command. He was buried in a valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, but no one knows his burial place to this day. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His sight was unimpaired, and his vigor had not abated. The Israelites wept for Moses in the plains of Moab for 30 days. Then the period of mourning for Moses was ended. Joshua, son of Nun, was full of the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands on him, and the Israelites obeyed him, doing as the Lord had commanded Moses. Never since has there arisen a prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. He was unequaled for all the signs and wonders that the Lord sent him to perform in the land of Egypt, against Pharaoh and all his servants and his entire land, and for all the mighty deeds and all the terrifying displays of power that Moses performed in the sight of all Israel. This is the word of the Lord.
Morning. I think our knowledge of Moses is clouded by the magic of the parting of the ways, by Hollywood's version of Moses, such as Charlton Heston, and the legendary status that many of the Old Testament figures have become. He almost becomes superhuman, rather than a real person. But he was real. Born to a poor Jewish family in slavery, he only managed to survive infancy because of his mother's scheming. He was raised as a prince in Egypt, and he showed his allegiance to justice and to his people, the Israelites, when he commits murder to protect an individual. He's banished from Egypt because of the murder, and stays away until God calls him to perform a seemingly impossible task to free the Israelites from slavery and to persuade Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. In Exodus 4, verse 10, Moses declares, "I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." But God always has an answer. And in this case, it was to allow Moses to take his brother Aaron along with him. A good choice, as Aaron was not only a priest, but a good speaker. As you know, after the 10 plagues, Pharaoh agreed to let the Israelites go. They fled, were pursued, but managed to cross the Red Sea to safety. They had been slaves so long, they were not sure how to cope with freedom. And Moses' job became even more difficult. He had many battles with the Israelites to keep them on God's path, whilst they learned to listen to God and to trust God. This took 40 years before they finally were allowed to pass into the Promised Land. And as we have heard in the reading, Moses didn't go with them. His job was done. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. It was time for a new beginning. Somebody said to me the other day that COVID had ruined the church. Many would close and others would barely survive. That shook me, as I know this benefice has worked hard to keep in touch with folk and to reach out to others with the broadcast services, phone calls, letters, and where possible, visits. Yes, things may change for the future, but they shouldn't stand still, even in the best of times. We have to adjust to the needs of the people, whilst maintaining God's presence in the forefront of our minds, hearts, and in the mind of the church. As I said earlier, Moses had many a battle with the Israelites, whether it was to persuade them not to follow the gods of other tribes, or to keep justice within themselves, let alone to keep peace when times got rough. But Moses kept faith with God, and that faith was rewarded, so that when the promised land was reached, the people were ready to settle there and to continue to grow in faith with God. I'm sure that God has a plan for us. A revival of interest in the church as a stable presence in our lives, and a picture of a safe and a good way forward. Like Moses, we will not see the end product as the times change. Technology, pandemics, and other influences will make us and future Christians reassess how we worship and how we deliver God's message until God's kingdom comes. But the basic message does not change. God is the Creator, and He gave us Jesus to show us the way to live to please Him, and He always loves us. And without our input as Christians today, any necessary changes will not keep us on God's tracks to keep the church and all its people safe, secure, and growing in the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. What is God calling us to do? When He calls us, is our first reaction, "No way, I can't do that"? Or do we trust in God enough to say, "Okay, so be it. Show me what you want me to do. I will trust you if you will lead me." Amen.